Hello, welcome to Legal Action. My name is Dave Siegel. Today we're going to be talking about DUI law. Once again, joining with me is Jesse Barrientes from DuPage County.
Good evening.
And we have a special guest today, Officer Cawthor, 17-year officer from the Itasca Police Department. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Officer Cawthor specializes or handles quite a bit of DUI-related cases, and that's going to be the subject today. Officer, welcome to the show again. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Okay. Well, I've been a police officer with the Itasca Police Department for a little over 17 years. My whole career has been at the Itasca Police Department. Right now I'm a patrol officer. And like you said, I like doing DUIs. And I do quite a few of them. I probably do the most for our department. And it's kind of a specialized area for me and for the department. And they allow me to do it, so I'm going to keep doing it.
I understand over the course of the year you average approximately 100 DUI arrests?
This year I will probably be around the 100 DUI mark. In the past I've been a little bit under or right around it, yeah.
Okay. And from a relatively small municipality of Itasca, that's pretty remarkable, would you say?
Yeah, it is. I mean, we are a small town, and I guess we're kind of lucky because we don't have a lot of other stuff going on, larger crimes that we're allowed to do a lot of traffic. And that's probably one of the reasons why I probably do have high numbers is because I don't have a lot of other stuff going on, so I can spend that time on the DUIs.
Sure. Jesse, you practice DUI law.
Yeah, I do general practice. I do criminal and DUI defense as well.
And that covers DuPage County, Cook County, Will County, Lake County? Pretty
much do the gambit of those things. I guess what I wanted to say, Officer Cawthor, and that's, I guess the underlying premise is, as it should be, that, hey, DUI is not going to be tolerated because it's not just something that is can hurt yourself, but also, very probably, other people.
Exactly. Exactly.
Let's talk about the genesis of a DUI case.
Okay.
Let's kind of walk through it, see what's involved, and talk about it. I guess you're stationed somewhere. That's how it all starts, correct? Or you're moving.
You could be moving or stationary when it all starts.
What is your typical method?
My method is I usually will be stationary, and I'll wait until I see one before I do anything. But it is very common for other officers to be driving and find them.
What do you look for?
I am looking for my main stop or violation of the Illinois Vehicle Code is probably improper lane usage is what I'm looking for, and that's probably out of the 85 DUIs I've done this year, I would say probably out of those 85, probably 60 of them are from improper lane usage.
If you can define that, is that a failure to signal, or is that moving between the lanes without signaling? What does that mean exactly?
Well, improper lane usage is when they go across the lines. And what I look for is somebody can go across that line not being intoxicated, but I'm looking for more than one time going across the lines on the roadway or the marker lines. And then typically what happens is once I observe that violation, I will then follow them. And typically you will see other violations as you're following them.
Is there any specific time where those violations are more prominent than others?
It depends on the day, and this might be my own little theory on it. But usually, when I'm working and I have different days off, but if I'm working from a Monday through Thursday, I always think that I have better luck finding DUIs if it's earlier in my shift. Now I work 11 to 7, so usually from that Monday to Thursday, I will look for my DUIs early in that shift from 11 all up to 2 o'clock. I feel is a hot time to find them. And a lot of that might relate to, when bars are closing and et cetera, when people might be leaving to go home. And then during the week, on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, especially on a Friday and Saturday, pretty much I can get a DUI anytime during that night, all the way up until 7 o'clock in the morning.
How about, as long as we're talking about that too, in terms of the kind of age of the people that generally you stop for DUI, is there a specific group that's more prominent than another? Is it more young? Is it middle-aged? Or
to tell you the truth, now just talking from this year's alone, the DUIs I've done, I've had a range of ages from any age you can think of. I had one driver all the way up to 70 years of age. But I would say that typically when we're doing DUIs, or the DUIs I do, usually see the ages between 21 and 35 usually right around that range is a majority of what I do age-wise. But I do get, I've had younger and I've had older too.
Once
So-
you visualize the infraction and you signal the driver to pull over, what do you expect that driver to do?
Well, once I follow them and I've seen the improper lane usage, I'm looking for other violations too. You're looking for, failure to signal, stopping at traffic control lights, maybe stopping at a green light. You're looking for their actions to see what they're doing. Once I turn on my lights, I'm looking to see how long it's going to be before they stop. Something I noticed on the DUIs that I have done in the past, if someone that's under the influence will usually take a little bit longer to stop than your normal person that isn't under the influence. And then I'm also looking to see how they're going to pull over to the shoulder. Are they going to pull over to the shoulder and get on the shoulder? Are they going to stay in the lane? Part of the vehicle going to be in the lane, or is all of it going to be on the shoulder? So I'm looking for all their actions, even when I've got my lights on and trying to stop them. Until they stop, I'm looking to see what they're doing.
You also kind of look to see any kind of movement in the car after your lights goes on. I mean, sometimes it's not just one person, but there might be passengers.
You do look for movement, and I got to admit, a lot of times it's hard to see that movement inside because of the glare from the glass and the lights, and because it's nighttime. It's not, you always have the best visual of the inside of the vehicle. So majority of the stuff that I do see is actually stuff that's occurring with the car or on the outside.
So when you do curb them, pull them over, what's the process or procedure? What's the next step that you kind of take?
Well, once they stop and they're curbed along the curb or on the shoulder, the next thing for me to do is I got my own procedures. I run the plate, make sure it's ran before I get out of my car. So if something bad were to happen, my dispatch and my other officers know where I'm at and who I have stopped. Then I would exit my vehicle and I would approach that car. If they were to get out of their vehicle, I make them get back in the vehicle.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. What do you expect them to do?
For safety purposes, I make them get back in the vehicle.
Do you expect them, what do you expect them to do with their hands? What would be ideal for?
Some officers want to see your hands and have them put them up on the wheel. Most of the time when I approach, I'm left-handed, so my gun's on my left side. So I approach with my gun at an angle to where I am close to that window with my right side. And I like to look inside to see what they're doing before I actually get in their vision where they can actually see me. But I'm looking to see what they're doing. Most of the time, and when I go up and approach, most of the time they'll have their window down, and they'll be going for their driver's license when I'm approaching. If they're not going for their driver's license, a lot of times people naturally will put their hands up on the wheels. But once I get up there, depending on what they're doing, where their hands at, and I think they're in a safe position, I then request a driver's license from them.
How about if there's a passenger?
I try to keep an eye on the passenger as I'm talking to the driver. I mean, there is sometimes when you stop a car that there are 3 or 4 people in it. And it is hard to view and see what they're all doing, but you try to keep a visual on all of them at the same time to make sure that there's no unusual actions or something that might indicate to me that there might be a problem coming.
As you're approaching the vehicle, the only thing you have so far is that they did a maneuver on the road that led you to believe that there may be probable cause for a DUI arrest, correct?
Sometimes when you see those violations, there's indication that, there is that probable cause that, there might be somebody in that vehicle that's been drinking. But I usually don't determine that until I actually get up there and start speaking to them.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
That's leading me to the next point. When you do finally get up to the vehicle and they've rolled down the window or whatnot and you begin to have a conversation with them, what do you observe or what is your next process?
Usually, and we're dealing with DUIs, when I go up and I ask for their driver's license, I'm looking to see how they're going to get that driver's license out of their wallet. A lot of times they'll have it in their hand already, so you can't make that observation, but I'm looking for their actions, how they respond to my questions. And I do ask a lot of questions. I'm one of the officers that I believe in a lot of questions, and it never hurts to ask, is my
Socratic
philosophy.
method.
Exactly. But I ask a lot of questions, and then once I get the driver's license, I will inform them of the violation that they've committed and why I'm pulling them over. And then once they've been informed of it, if they have questions, I answer their questions. And then I will ask them questions. Also during this time, I'm looking for the observation and smelling, trying to smell their breath or what kind of odors are coming out of that car. So I'm looking for the strong odor of alcoholic beverage coming from their breath or emitting from their breath. I'm looking for bloodshot, glassy eyes. I'm looking for slurred or thick-tongued speech when they're talking.
Well, let me ask you, actually, let's go back just for a second. When they're getting their driver's license, or when you ask for that,
Okay.
What are you looking for? If say I'm kind of fumbling around, got my wallet, dropped my stuff, going through it, does that give you any kind of indication, one way or the other, of that person's kind of state of sobriety?
It's actually one little small indication that kind of adds up with all the other
Okay.
indications that indicate that they might be under the influence of alcohol. And like you said, some of the things I'm looking for when they're looking for that wallet or taking out their driver's license is, dropping the stuff. Or a lot of times they'll hand you something other than their driver's license. I've had many people hand me credit cards or...
Well, is that in addition to their license? Or
Well,
just
no, but they're handing it to you thinking it
as
is
your
their
license.
driver's
Okay.
license. And then I have to ask again, oh, this ain't your driver's license.
Sure.
Can you look for your driver's license again? Or they'll give me IDs that aren't their driver's license. And then I ask again for their driver's license.
Yeah. Let's say you're at the point now where you feel that this person may, in fact, be driving while intoxicated. Do you then engage in the numerous field sobriety tests?
To tell you the truth, yeah, that would be one of the next stages, but I will ask them if they've been drinking. It's one of the questions that I'll typically ask is, hey, have you been drinking tonight? And the majority of the time, if they've been drinking, they will state, yeah, I had a beer or whatever it may be that they had.
Has anybody ever told you, yeah, I had 12?
On very rare occasion, you'll get the guy that will say, hey, yeah, I've had 6, 7 beers tonight, and then I might come back with a question. Well, what time did you start drinking? And they might give me a 2-hour time span, or it might have been 8 o'clock in the morning, and now it's 11 or 12 o'clock at night. So when they say 12 beers, it could have been all day drinking.
Well, do you ask then in kind of that, just if they're in that kind of situation, whether or not maybe they ate something, whether they've been drinking just kind of on an empty stomach, or like you say, okay, maybe they were at a party earlier and through a sustained course of time.
Okay. Well,
Is it stuff?
And that is something that I'm interested in. I'll ask them where they're coming from, where they're going, because a lot of times what I'm looking for when I'm asking where they're going, they'll say they're going home. And since I have their driver's license already, I can see what their address is of where they live. And I can see, if they live in the north, you need to go north on the road that you're on to get home, but they're going south, then I'll ask them, well, why are you going this way? Well, I'm on my way home. And then I'll let them know that, well, you're going the wrong way. And they say, no, I'm not. And they won't believe it at first, but that's something I'm looking for, to see if they're going the right way.
Is it more common than not that you'll hear an answer that they haven't been drinking at all?
You do hear that.
When it's obvious the person had something, correct?
Right. You will hear that. Out of the 85
How do you
DUIs,
take that?
out of the 85 DUIs I've done this year, I would probably say between 10 and 15 of them said they've had nothing to drink this night that I haven't stopped.
Okay.
So that is typical. I mean, some people will say that.
Sure.
Before we go on to the field sobriety test, what kind of other observations? Let's say, for example, you see Dave here is dressed in a really nice suit and tie and everything else. I mean, does appearance, does being groomed and being neat, does that account for anything in your kind of judgment when you're making a determination?
And that's a good question. Some of the things that I do look for also is a lot of times if the person's a smoker, you'll notice that there's ashes all over their nice suit or their nice dress, which wouldn't be very common. I mean, if you got nice clothes, you don't want them dirty. Also, hate to say it, but sometimes you'll also see vomit. You'll see other indications that there's some problems inside that car, probably from drinking or whatever it may be, some type of drug use.
Sure.
And we're also looking, as I'm talking to them, I'm also scanning that car to see if there's containers, alcohol containers, open containers, any kind of container, and if it's open or if it's out of its package. Also looking for drug paraphernalia and stuff like that.
Can you estimate what percentage of your DUI arrests had open alcohol in the car as well?
Out of the 85 I've done this year, I would say between maybe 10 or 15 might have had open containers. Or a container that hasn't been opened, but a single can of beer that hasn't been opened yet. And out of those 15, was it observable when I was talking to them? Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's after you place them under arrest, you find it under the seat or wherever it may be inside that vehicle.
Yeah,
A lot of times they'll hide it. They'll hide it. But something I do notice is a lot of times when they do hide it, it's an open container. They spill that beer. You'll see spilt or you'll see wet marks on the seats. And then there's a very strong odor of alcoholic beverage beyond what you think you're smelling from their breath, you can actually smell it in the vehicle. And so them are just some of the little clues that you'll look for.
Open alcohol in the vehicle is pretty easy to spot. And
If it's visible, you better believe it. I mean, you'll see it. Like I said, a lot of times they'll hide it, though. They know. And to go back to a question that you had asked earlier, looking for that movement in the car, you're looking for a movement of them going down towards that passenger seat, because maybe they're putting something underneath that seat to hide it, so I don't see it. And you're right. You do look for that movement, but it is tough at night to see that movement. But sometimes you are able to see it, depending on where you are in the lighting situation. You'll see some type of movement that indicates that they're definitely, they're doing something. They're hiding something, or why would you move like that? Go to the passenger seat, bend over for the passenger seat to choose an indication that they're hiding something.
With respect to the smell, and I kind of wondered about that too. If I can understand if you have another passenger in the car, but if maybe you have, like you said, maybe there's 4 people in the car,
right?
And maybe maybe they've all been drinking. Is it kind of hard to make that determination where the odor is coming from the driver or from just the car? Or
and that's a good point. Usually, when I talk to my drivers, when I'm up talking to them, I try to get very close to them. At one point during the conversation, I'll get close enough to them to where you almost got that breath coming directly at you.
They always chew a lot of gum. Is that your experience?
And that's a good point. And it's like you said. What are those little indications you look for? Chewing gum. When you see somebody chewing gum real fast, another indication that I always notice a lot of times on my DUIs is they'll light up a cigarette right as I'm walking up, and they'll start puffing real fast, which ain't normal. Sucking really hard on it and real fast, and up and down, up and down, up and down.
Try to cover up
and
the
then
smell.
Blowing smoke real fast in the car, and you get up the car and it's cloudy, which usually isn't typical. Usually a smoker will have a gap, and they want that smoke to go outside. They don't want to be sitting in it. Right. So yeah, there's a lot of little indications that you kind of look for.
Okay, let's get them out of the car now.
Okay.
We've seen enough about the car. You're bringing them out. You're asking them to step out of the car, correct?
I'm going to ask them to exit the vehicle.
Okay. What if they refuse that?
Well, and that does happen. If they refuse it, I'm going to try to talk them into it and give them the reasons why they want to do it. Explain to them I want to make sure that they're okay to drive tonight. And if they're not, I don't want them to be on the road because I don't want them to hurt anybody. Sure. But if they still refuse to get out of the car, at some point I'm going to make that determination if they should be arrested for driving under the influence of alcohol or what charges may be pending against them. At that point, I got to rely on the observations I've already made. When they got their driver's license, their driving, the violations of the Illinois Vehicle Code, their speech, and it goes back to all those little indicators.
But you're going to give them every opportunity. You're not going to make a real quick decision, from what I'm hearing?
I'm most of the time, I'm going to give them a lot of time to, if they're saying they don't want to take any tests, first of all, I'm going to talk to them to see that if I can talk them into taking those tests. If they don't want to take them, I can't force them to take them. And I'm not going to force them to take them. But I will try to talk them into taking them.
Okay.
Out of those 85 or so DUI arrests that you've had so far this year, how many would you say didn't get out of the car, refused it to come out?
I can honestly say out of those 85, I probably only had 1 or 2 that said that they would not do no further tests. Other than me talking to them, they said they wouldn't do no field sobriety tests. So really, not all that high for me. Mm-hmm. Now, when you get them out of the car and you ask them to do specific tests, I've had a lot of people say they're not going to do those tests. But I was able to do other tests with them. But it's very low for flat out saying, no, I'm not doing nothing.
Sure.
And something I noticed on that 1 to 2 that I did do, usually they're like a 3rd or 4th time offender. So to me, it's kind of like they know the system and they know that they don't want to do it.
Okay. Let's talk about the tests.
Okay.
What's the first or most common test that you're going to perform on a field sobriety test?
Well, I do the 3 standard tests that are approved by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. And these are 3 tests that are recognized by the court. And those 3 tests that I'm going to do, or the tests of the 3 that I want to do, would be the one-leg balance test, the walk and turn test, and the HGN test, which is called the horizontal gaze nystagmus test. Those are my 3 basic tests that I will do on all stops, or try to do on all traffic stops.
Let's talk about the one-leg balance test in detail. What's involved in that?
Well, basically what it is when I get that driver out, we want to do those tests in a safe place. If I got a parking lot I can walk to, I'd rather do it in a parking lot, not to be on the street, chance of being hit. But on that one-leg stance test, I'll tell them what I want to do is let me explain the test first. Before I even get to the point where I'm asking them to do that one-leg stance test, I'm going to ask him if he has any injuries that would prevent him from doing balance tests or give him any problems with doing tests. And if they say, no, I don't have no injuries, then I'll go in and I'll say, let me explain the test to you first. Let me also demonstrate them to you, and then I'm going to have you do them. And basically what it is, I'll tell them to stand in a normal standing position. When I tell them to, I'm going to have them lift 1 foot just up off the ground in front of them, and I'll demonstrate it to them how I want them to lift it, just so it's up off the ground in front of them. And while watching their foot, I'm going to have them count from 1/1000 to 31,000 out loud. And to count it out loud so I can hear it, keep the foot in the air, keep their hands to their side, and I let them pick which foot they're going to lift, either left or right. It doesn't matter to me which one they're going to lift, because some people are more comfortable on other feet, so it doesn't matter to me which foot they're going to lift. And then once I get done explaining my directions and showing my demonstrations, I then ask them to perform that test.
Seems like a relatively long period of time to hold that leg up.
You know, it does, but you can do it. I mean, I can do it. And
have there been studies on people sober? Not an ounce of alcohol,
they have done
where
studies,
can do that?
and I couldn't tell you the percentages, but there is studies of what percent are going to be under the influence of alcohol that can't keep it up for that 30 seconds. Now, you got to remember, too, I mean, for me to fill them on putting that foot down, I'm looking for 3 or more times. You know, they put it down once or twice, that's okay, you know.
Okay.
But I'm looking for 3 or more times.
So,
put it down.
Officer Cawthor, so even just that test alone by itself, that's just one piece of the puzzle. It's not just
one little
one test.
indicator added with all the other indicators to let me know that they're under the influence of
It's the
alcohol.
cumulative effect of everything else. So it's not any one thing that
It
they've
ain't
done.
just one test. It's adding everything together, all your observations, the IVC violations, the test, what they've said in their conversations, the other, the strong odor of alcoholic beverage, bloodshot, glassy eyes, slurred speech. It's all added together to tell me that they're under the influence of alcohol.
Let's say they pass that first test.
Okay.
Maybe there's somebody who can consume a lot of alcohol and have done it for years, and really that's not going to faze them at all to do that
Right.
test. You move on from there, correct? You just don't
Yes.
stop?
Yes, I'll go to
Where
the
do you
next
go?
test. The next test that I typically do is a walk and turn test. And that's basically, it's the same thing again. I'll tell them, let me explain it to you first. But while I'm giving them the instructions, I either use a line or I'll use a reference point. So say like, a lot of times where I do my stops, there won't be a line that I can use that I can have them walk on a line. So I'll use where 2 pieces of cement meet, or cement and blacktop meet, as long as it's flush. Or if I'm on a sidewalk, I'll tell them to use the grass as a guide on the side of the sidewalk, but walk on the sidewalk a couple inches away from it. The first thing I'll do on the walk and turn test is I'll have them place their foot and place their second foot in front of it so it's touching heel to toe while I'm explaining my instructions. So I'm looking to see, one, if they can pick up on what I'm telling them, and I'm also looking to see if they can keep in that position while I'm explaining and demonstrating that test to them. And then after I get done explaining to them, I'll explain to them that what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you walk down the line with your hands to your side, heel to toe on every step, meaning just touching the front of the foot to the back of the foot, down the line 9 steps. Count it out loud, the 9 steps. When you get to your 9th step, whatever foot is in the back, you're going to take little steps. You're going to pivot on the front foot and do a complete turn to where you just came from. So you're facing back the way you just came from. Once you do the turn, then I'm going to have you walk back 9 steps, heel to toe. And then once I get done with my explanation and demonstration, then I have them perform the test.
Suppose, for example, you've stopped a female, and she has on, the high-heeled pumps or whatever. Is that going to, you're going to ask her to take them off, or does that ever factor into the equation?
To tell you the truth, and that happens quite a bit, where you'll get high heels or some shoe that could affect that balance. Most of the time, I won't ask them to take off a shoe. I'll ask them if they want to take off their shoes. It's their decision. I'm not going to make anybody take off their shoes that don't want to. But I will ask them if they're high heels. I'll ask them, is it typical that they wear high heels?
Okay.
You know, some people can walk in high heels better than a normal person can walk in running shoes because they wear them at work all day, or they wear them quite a bit. So I will ask them questions of, do you wear high heels a lot? Do you wear it several times a week, once a week? Is this the only time you wear them this month? To give me an indication of, are they used to those shoes? But yeah, I will give them the choice. A lot of people will take them off, to tell you the truth. Out of these 85 DUIs, I want to say I probably had maybe 10 that were wearing high heels, and probably 9 of them removed them on their own. They said, we want to remove them.
Let's say in our example here, our suspect did real well with the leg in the air,
Okay.
did pretty well with the walk and turn.
Okay.
So far, so good for the suspect.
Okay.
What's next?
The next test I would do is the horizontal gaze nystagmus test, or the HGN test. And on this test again, before I'm going to perform this test, I'm going to ask them if they're wearing contacts. If they're wearing contacts, I'll ask them if they're hard or glass. If they say they're glass, I will look at their eye because I can tell if they're glass due to the fact that I had worn glass earlier in my life. I had glass contacts, and you can see them because they're quite thick. And I'll have them turned aside with my flashlight. I can see if they're glass or soft contacts. Once I know that they don't have contacts or they got soft contacts, I then explain the test to them. I tell them I'm going to hold a pen in front of their eyes, approximately 12 to 18 inches away from their eyes. I'm going to move that pen left and right, or hold it to the left or right, and I want them just to follow it with just their eyes and not move their head. Follow with just their eyes. After I get done explaining the test to them, I then perform that test on them.
How reliable is that test?
I think the test is very reliable to indicate that they've been drinking alcohol. It's a test that I don't think they can control. They don't even know, most people that get this test don't even know what I'm looking for. But what I'm looking for is involuntary jerking of the eye. So typically when you do a HGN test, if they're not under the influence, that eye will move smoothly across. But when they're under the influence of alcohol, what you're looking for is you're looking for that eye to move, but you're just looking for a little twitch as it's moving, a little stoppage as it's moving. And then there's 3 indications on that test. You're looking for maximum deviation, you're looking for onset before a 45-degree angle, and you're looking for smooth pursuit. And what I look for when I'm bringing it to maximum deviation on left and right eye is you bring that eye all the way to the corner, and you're looking for bouncing in that eye to see if it's going to move. A person that is under influence, that eye will just sit there. It won't move at all. But it's basically you're looking for the involuntary jerking in the eye, and all 6 clues on that test.
Very good.
When you're looking at that again, I mean that's a little bit different than the other test. The other kind of test your balance,
right?
And so the leg stand test. Not only are you looking for them to drop their leg, that would be a fail,
right,
3 more times, but also maybe steadying themselves.
Well, to back up to that the walk and turn test, for example, you're looking for, are they using their arms for balance? Are they swaying? Can they walk that line, or do they step off that line? Do they turn correctly, or do they turn incorrectly? So you're looking to see if they can comprehend everything that you're saying. Also, can they count at the same time they're walking? So it's like a double test. You're looking for if they can understand what you're saying, but you're also looking for that balance part of it too.
Let me ask one thing, because it's just the thought real quickly that kind of came to my mind is, what about, I mean, there are a lot of different people with different kinds of body types. There are some people that are really large people that just have a difficulty just walking anyway, or even just getting up out of the car too. I mean, are those kind of considerations factored in the specific person that you've stopped?
Anytime you give a balance test, I mean, consideration is age, and also their physical. They're really overweight, or if they have that injury, you can't do those balance tests. So then I would opt to do other tests that I've learned through my training. And there is a couple different other tests I would use, like a finger index test, the alphabet test, the finger and nose test, or some other ones that I can use. To do if I can't do those balance tests.
Thank you very much. I think you can tell if you drink and drive, you're going to be dealing with a seasoned professional on the other end, especially if you drive through Itasca. You're not going to fool him. He knows what he's looking for. He knows how to conduct the test. So best thing to do is not get behind that wheel if you've been drinking. Thank you for joining us, Officer Cawthor.
Thank you for inviting me.
And we will be back next month with Part 2 with Officer Cawthor on DUI. For Jesse Barrientos, I'm Dave Siegel. Thanks for joining us for Legal Action.